Well, hello everybody. Welcome back into another wondrous little time here on the Wild Wild West. Guess where I'm at? You guys remember this old girl? Remember last time we was around this truck, what I was doing? I was covered head to toe in oil, grease, nastiness, all the bad stuff. Right now, I'm back at Joe's place. Wanted to give you guys an update on what's going on with the old Coronado. The Coronado that's not gonna be so old by the time we're done with it. For those of you that are new to what's going on here and you're wondering what's a Coronado and what are you talking about, let me tell you. So I had this great idea to keep my eyes peeled, watch for trucks that I might find. See the oil specks and stuff, is it picking that up? She's gonna need a good bath and a good wax when we're done. But anyway, I've always liked trucks and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna find some trucks, I'm gonna clean them up and provide trucks for people. Well, I find this truck. It was sold by D&B Trucks out in Glasgow, Kentucky. It was originally a Fitzgerald glider from 2009, way back before they had all of their issues and trouble. Traded into D&B Trucks. They put it up for sale, couldn't sell it, and so they put it up for auction, which is where I bought it. Had a pretty fresh overhaul. It was within the last year. You know, it's knee deep in rubber. They had polished it. You can see the tanks and things are polished and everything's nice. On paper, it looks like a great rig. So I was feeling pretty good. I come out, fire up the truck, runs good, sounds great, sounds strong, and I'm thinking, we're good. Get down the road a ways and start to have some issues where we, long story short, realize the engine is gonna need probably overhaul. It was pushing. So we brought it down to Joe's. It actually has not even seen the ranch yet. It's been at Joe's. Pulled the engine out. Transmission is out. Look right there. And we're back down here at Joe's and we're gonna see what's shaking. So come along, we'll give you a good update. You can see where we're at and where we're going. Joseph.
What's going on?
Hey man. What do we got? I'm trying to bring everybody up to speed. Kind of told them we had a lot of parts and pieces and stuff have showed up and that I have been absent because I've been busy and you've been...
So we've done a lot of cleaning, lots of cleaning.
What was the worst and dirty part of
the block was pretty dirty. That flywheel housing is pretty nasty. We haven't gotten to that yet.
That's why I'm here, you guys. I'm here to clean. I'm here to clean. Joe is doing important things. When you see Joe with what's that on?
They call this a depth mic.
A depth mic?
Yeah.
See, the only mics I know about are like microphones, like singing and stuff. So Joe's doing important things with that. I'm going to be doing more of the menial stuff, which is good. I'm okay with that. So the block, this is part of why originally this truck had issues. It was overhauled. These were actually fairly new liners, and they actually were from Detroit. They were genuine, but they'd used terrible antifreeze, right?
Yeah.
Like bad. So here's a lesson for you. It actually, antifreeze quality does matter because they had used such bad antifreeze in here that it turned everything rusty. So you guys, inside of here, all of this was just nasty rust. Insert picture of rusty block here. Pretty gross, huh? So then Joe gets this product that's magical, what was it called?
Evaporust.
How old school does that sound? Evaporust. Do you remember that? There was a Ben Stiller movie where they invented
Vaporize, vaporize.
Vaporize. Remember that? You'd spray this stuff on dog poop and it would just disappear into nowhere. Which in today's society with all the dogs everyone has everywhere, like I watched a dog in Home Depot the other day squat down and just drop a big old deuce right in the aisles. And I'm like, your dog probably doesn't want to be in here, sir. We don't want, anyway, Vaporize would have been perfect in that moment. Spray it right down. So Joe finds this stuff called Evaporust. It's actually made by CRC.
CRC, yeah.
They make a lot of cleaning products and stuff. And what did you do exactly?
Just soaked it. So I had all the old liners still in there. Plugged off all the coolant passages. And then filled the block with it and let it soak for probably about 4 or 5 days.
And the end result, you guys, insert picture here. Can you believe that? Like, from the nastiest turd to the shiniest whatever. It was great. So that was a big win there. In fact, it was dirty enough. We were kind of worried, like, I hope this block is okay.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad, but Joe's done a great job. So important things when we're overhauling an engine. Again, you guys, you're gonna hear me say "we" a lot. By "we," I mean him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just put that out there right now. I'm not trying to take any credit whatsoever, but it's important for this surface here to be straight,
Perfectly
perfect.
straight.
It's gotta be right on the level.
So you're allowed 3 thousandths side to side. You're allowed 5 thousandths front to back.
Okay.
And so the way we check that, we take this straight edge that is perfectly machined, perfectly flat.
Was perfectly machined until you dropped it. No.
So you lay that on there, and then you take feeler blades, and we got a 3 and a 5, and if they don't fit,
Oh, I see. Because there'd be a little bridge there.
you're within spec. They don't fit underneath.
Oh, that's cool.
And you check it this way, you check it this way, you check it this way.
Okay, and after all of your checks,
It's straight, perfectly
straight.
straight.
that's a pleasant surprise.
There's some blemishes.
Yeah, we noticed that. We got, where are they
There you
at
go.
here? A couple, looked like someone
here's
came in
one
with a
there.
hammer and was just, there.
And
Yep.
a couple over here.
Just some little dings.
But they're not in a crucial sealing area. So we're just gonna try and fill them a little bit with some epoxy and it should be fine.
Okay, we got this, you guys. We brought in the big guns. If you're in the metal working world, you'll know Belzona is the name. Anyway, you mix those two together, and they make this amazing epoxy compound, hard as a rock, and you can fill these and then sand it off. And when you're sanding on this stuff, you got to be a little delicate.
Yeah, you want to use something flat. You don't want to use your finger because you'll create a divot.
Joe was telling me about a little trick that he learned, a little tip about wet sanding.
So obviously, wet sanding cleans your sandpaper and makes it easier to cut. I use Power Service instead of water or solvent.
Right there, you guys. Right there.
It cleans and cuts so well that and so fast. I mean, you'll use less sandpaper. It's less time. It's absolutely amazing how well it works.
Were you doing that on here?
Yep.
So you were wet sanding with Power Service. Whenever Joe mentions more cost, I just come and rub the block. It's okay. I'm happy. I feel good. So as far as other little issues that Joe found, the main reason actually we brought down the Belzona. Belzona's very expensive. That couple little containers there is $400 or $500, and Joe found a little issue inside of the block. We're going to try to get you a camera angle here in a second. Ironically, it's a thing that when James and I did the Kenworth a couple years ago, remember James? He's doing great, by the way. James, you're probably watching. Thumbs up. James is doing very well. He found the same issue, and we actually, I think we used, that might have been when I very first got the Belzona. But we used it for that. Let's show you what's going on. So those packs over there, those silver tubes, they're going to drop down in the hole. And there's certain parts of these tubes. See these little, I guess, what'd you call it? Just a protrusion from the wall of this. There's a little, that.
Yeah, so you got seals that go in here.
And then you put seals on here. And those seals go down into the hole. You guys see that little line? There's a dark line. I'm gonna try to point to it. Maybe in there. See right there? That's better. So here's the damage Joe found. If you look, you'll see that it's in almost every one of these. Some it's a little worse than others, but you want that to be smooth. You see that? Not like a deal breaker like, well, she's shot, boys. I guess that's it. What we'll do is we'll mix up that Belzona and ring it around that, let it set up, and then that'll get sanded smooth. All right, so now that you kind of have, a couple of the things we're dealing with and what we're working on.
So we're dry fitting these. We don't have the seals in yet. because we still need to do some epoxy work in there. But we want to make sure that this block doesn't need to be machined in the counterbore area, this area right here.
Okay.
And that's where the top of that, or actually that lip of that liner sits. So you measure what's called protrusion, how far this sticks up above the block. Because this is your crucial sealing area for your head gasket.
Which is what part of what failed on the
Part of what failed, yeah. So I'm using a depth mic, which will work for this purpose, but it's not the exact tool they call out. They call out a sled gauge, which is more of a dial indicator based tool. Okay. But for this, if you just use some simple math and measure the distance from here to here, and then the distance from here to here, you can figure out your protrusion.
Last thing I'll point out to you guys about these liners, see that? It's called cross hatching, those little swirls. Cross hatching swirls. When you buy a truck and someone's like, oh yeah, she was overhauled the other night, boys. And you have a failure, and you take the engine apart and you look down in, you want to see some cross hatching. These are dirty, so it's hard to see. You can see it in this one. See the cross hatching is still there. That's a good indicator that these are actually fairly new liners. The pistons going up and down in here haven't eliminated all your cross hatching.
So our first one was 2 thousandths all the way around.
Okay.
You measure in 4 spots.
Okay, so you can get the full.
Yep. This side so I can read it. And it takes a little bit of feel. You don't want to actually pick the tool up.
Okay, we're halfway there, and so far we're within spec, so we're okay. But I was just asking Joe if, say, we go to measure the next to number 4, and it's sunk down too far, what happens?
So there's a couple things. One is if Detroit offers shims to go underneath it, you can shim it up.
Okay, see that would set right in
there,
right in here and hold it up. Okay.
Now, if they don't offer shims, what you have to do is take it to a machine shop. They're going to machine the whole deck down a few thousandths.
Okay.
Then that'll bring this one back in spec, but that'll make these ones stick up too far.
Okay.
So then they go in and they cut this counterbore down to bring the rest of the cylinders back in spec.
Gotcha. So there's always a fix, almost always. Have you ever got one where a block is shot due to the counterbores?
I did do a block once on a Cummins ISX because of a counterbore issue. Kind of weird, actually. When the truck came in, you could actually hear these liners slapping inside the block.
Just clattering
it's
around.
the funniest noise I've ever heard. So when we started checking it, the counterbores were wore out way too much. This was when the ISX was kind of new. There was a procedure for cutting the counterbores, but nobody had the tooling to do it. The customer opted to replace the block. So we got a bare block and then put new liners and reused the crank, the head, all those other parts.
Okay, well there you go. You learned a little something, huh?
Two and a half, almost 3 thousandths. We're
So
good.
The verdict?
All the way across, it's perfect.
That's a relief. Good deal.
I thought about looking into buying a new brake for that, and then kind of got sidetracked.
Yeah.
Forgot about it.
Flipping the block upside down. I'm gonna lay it down so we can put the crank in.
Yep.
And measure the oil clearance to make sure that there's proper clearance for the oil to lubricate the crank. Joe has some aerial acrobatics about to go down. It's gonna be good. So when you hear talk of main bearings, you guys, this is what they're talking about. Those of you that are trucking out there, you hear that term, but you've never actually got to lay your eyes on it. These are the main bearings, okay? So the crank, which Joe is getting unsheathed from its slumber, is gonna lay right in here, right on these main bearings. And then we're gonna check to make sure that there's proper clearances, because oil comes here, comes out these holes, and sprays down on these. So as that crank is spinning, right, it gets lubed up properly. The other bearings that you hear about all the time is rod bearings, right? You hear rods and mains. You're looking at a truck for sale and it's had rods and mains done on it recently, right? So these would be where your rod bearings attach, your pistons connect to, and then these are your main, would be your main bearings that'll set right in the cradle over there. So you have rod, main, tuk, 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 tuk.
So this stuff here is called Plastigauge. It's this little tiny piece of plastic that you can barely see.
Oh.
And this is a specific diameter. They do make this in different sizes for different clearances. We're gonna take a tiny little piece of this and we're gonna lay it on each journal.
Okay.
Then we're gonna put the other half of the bearings in the caps. And we're going to bolt the caps on.
We actually bolt them on.
We're actually going to bolt them on. Then we're going to take them back off, and that plastic should smush between that bearing and this journal.
Okay.
And it'll flatten it out, and you match it up to here, and depending on how much it's flattened out is how much oil clearance you have.
Oh,
So they make this in green,
okay.
which... green's good. They have blue, which is okay.
Okay.
And then they have red.
No good.
Red's no good.
Red is bad.
So we're hoping green is the one.
And it's the different colors. So if it squishes too much, does it?
No, it won't squish enough.
Okay.
So if it doesn't even touch it and doesn't squish that plastic,
That'll make low oil
then,
pressure.
yeah, then you got to go to the next size. We'll go to the blue, and we'll check it with the blue.
Okay. Gotcha. But green is the first. If we get it here, then we're
good.
Good as gold. Blue, then we have to have a powwow and decide what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Red, whole project's getting sent to the scrapyard. Is that what we're thinking? I liked it better when Joe would just call and surprise me and be like, "Hey man, bad news." Instead of having to sit here and witness, this would be a good time to talk a little bit about oil pressure. Every engine has its own oil pressure spec. Some run more pressure than others. But if you are running low oil pressure, you have an old engine that's got 900,000 miles on it and your pressure is getting lower over the last several thousand miles, it's because the distance between that journal here and your bearing is getting bigger. So the bigger the clearance between there, the more room for oil to flow, which means less pressure is built up in your system. See our little checker? Got him in. He's got this one on. We haven't tightened it yet, but we'll set those caps on each one. Another little one you've heard about, term you've heard many times. You've had a big nasty oil leak on the back. This is the back of the engine right here, you guys. This baby here, rear main seal. That's where that rear main would go once your housing and everything's on here. Seals all the goods in the engine, keeps the juice from falling out of the goose. But that's another one of those mechanic trucker terms. Your rear main seals, looks like she's weeping and seeping pretty bad, buddy. Now that you see this, when the crank is spinning, it's turning all these gears, which in turn run all these magical deals that are inside of the front cover. Okay, so cranked them down tight, just loosen them all. You're gonna discover with us, and you can deal with this anxiety as I do at the same time as Joe pulls the caps. We'll see what we got. Little squish, definitely some squish, not a fat squish. Okay, so we're switching gears here a little bit. The green crushes are not crushing, at least on this first one, very well. So we just put a blue one under there. We're gonna pull it so we can actually get a measurement to know what our tolerance is. Joe mentioned something. Newer engines, you know, the Cummins ISXs and the DD15 Detroits, they all have much tighter clearances on everything that they do. So the older the engine, the more clattery and loose things are, generally speaking. That's why old diesel engines use like 1540 oil and newer diesel engines use lighter weight oil. We may be within spec here. We're going to find out.
Just within spec.
Just barely?
I would call it 6,000s.
Right on. And the spec was...
Or no, that's out. It was 4 to 5.
Was it 4 to 5, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, not a good start. Not a good start.
We go to number 2.
All right, here comes number 2. And it actually squished. Whereas number 1, the green one, did not, hardly.
3. It's a little thin on the 3.
Yeah, a little thin on the 3s. So we're probably all right there. You watch, we're gonna do all the rest. They're gonna be all good except for this one. All right, check them out. Everything ended up being right at 3,000s. They all were good. And then this one was a little over. It was right at the high end of the tolerance chain there. So we're gonna go with it because these ones are all perfect. I mean, they're right dead on. Joe mentioned an interesting thing here. That is that this bearing can get a little more wear. Why? Do you know why? I didn't know. Because this is the end of the engine that has all the belts and whatnot on the front of your motor on it. When them belts are tight, it's actually pulling on all this, which puts a little strain on that bearing, which would cause it to
wear more than the other ones.
To wear more than the rest because they're not dealing with belts on the end of them. So we're gonna roll back in. I think Joe thinks we'll be okay. So if it fails, all right? No. I agreed. We had a council and I agreed. And interesting tidbit about a crankshaft, you cannot leave it sitting like this unsupported, like it would be sitting in an engine supported. If you leave it like this, it'll get it out of balance. It'll actually sag. So funny little follow-up, you guys. The last videos, you remember, I was power washing and it was super dirty and all that. So I've come now while got a little more time yet here before I got to head back up to the ranch. And so I'm going to start washing some parts. And Joe's like, hey, I got gloves. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah, I got gloves. Hey, and then over there on the wall, there's an apron you can use. It goes, I used it last time I washed off a motor. It kept me pretty clean. Guess who didn't get the apron last time I washed off a motor? Joe's been holding out. He's been holding out on me, turkey. It look like I work at a truck wash? Because I do. The Belzona right here, you guys. 2 parts. Bam, bam. 3 to 1. 3 to 1, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 3 to 1. Mix her up good. They send you, for all the money you spend on the product, they send you this nice little mixing board, a little mixing spatula, and you get her all blended together. It sets up fairly slow. It doesn't, you're not in a tremendous rush. We're leaving this block upside down because you can get at those damaged sections a little easier, a little quicker. So, well, Joe does the masterful stuff. I'm gonna go do the dirty stuff. All right, I didn't get a whole lot done. It's time to go, guys. We gotta wrap this up. I did get the main greasy. This is parts washer number 1. Once it's washed, it graduates over to number 2. And so this baby is fresh. So when we get her loaded up with that Schaefer's oil, she'll be good. Let me show you real quick. Joe got the Belzona wrapped up. See there, now you can tell, just wrapped it around each one of those. Fill any little imperfections all the way down the line. That's gonna set up for a few days. And then Joe will sand it down. Joe will get her sanded down, and then this will be ready to flip. We'll be ready for assembly. Huh? Yeah. Start throwing stuff together. Pistons and liners and the crank. Crank probably is the first thing you put back in.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you guys on this one this is the difference between a full out of frame overhaul and an in-frame overhaul is this. Front cover came off. Over here you got the gears. These are your main gears that run the cam. Air compressor, and oh yeah, fuel pump and power steering and air compressor and all that stuff is run by the big three here essentially. So this is the notorious bull gear you always hear about with Series 60s. This bearing in here can go bad and send everything haywire. But everything's out. It's going to get all completely resealed. Got a fun surprise coming as well. I'm not going to share it with you yet. I will just say that I have a certain performance parts company that I've had very good luck with that matches Detroit engines very well and creates beautiful, efficient, wonderful power. And I'm going to introduce you to that. Soon you'll enjoy that. But I bet next time me and old Hot Rod over here get together, it'll probably be, you're going to have a lot of stuff well at hand.
Oh yeah, I'll be
Well,
pretty far together.
me and Joe are scheming a few other things too. I'm not going to tell you a peep about that. But we may have an epic transcontinental, transarctic. Can we call it transarctic technically?
Yeah.
It's maybe a stretch.
Yeah.
It might be a stretch, but you never know. Good things coming forward. You guys, that's the update. We'll keep after it, keep you posted. Till next time, be good.